Hi, my name is Rachel and you're watching the Rachelistic channel. Welcome back to another episode of NeuroSpicy Stories with Rachel. So this is a series where I share stories of my life, of things that made more sense once I learned that I'm neurodivergent, more specifically autism and ADHD. So my goal for sharing these stories is really just to increase some awareness of neurodiversity, whether that be expanding people's ideas of what a neurodivergent person looks like or acts like, or simply reminding people that, everyone has different reasons for doing things the way that they do them. But either way, I hope that by sharing these stories, I encourage people to judge others just a little bit less. So now it's time for NeuroSpicy Stories with Rachel, the part of the show when Rachel comes out and shares a NeuroSpicy story. Without further ado, here's the story of the time that having a special interest really helped. So this story takes place when I was 11 years old, so in 2010, and I was in grade 4 and in Ontario, Canada. Okay. So this story starts in my grade 4 class when my teacher gives us an assignment to write a report about an animal for science class, and then later we would present these projects to the class. So I don't really remember how much time in advance he gave us this project. I don't know. I don't remember if he reminded us about this project, like as the due date was coming up. What I do remember is the fact that I did not remember to do this project. So that is the first NeuroSpicy thing that I did in this story. There's multiple NeuroSpicy things that happen in this story, but this is the first one, is me forgetting that I had this project in the first place. So really it's procrastination and forgetting, but yes, I definitely procrastinated on it and then forgot about it, and then when I remembered it, it was not great. Let me set the stage here, okay? So it's the evening of a school night. Let's say that I don't know what day of the week it was, but it was a school night, okay? It's the evening, right? Like the sun is setting or has set. The family, we had dinner, we cleaned up in the kitchen. Like people are starting to think about, okay, getting ready for bed, getting ready for the next day. It's the end of the day, okay? For an 11-year-old, it's really the end of the day, okay? And that's when I remembered that I had a project due the next day. So what do? I go to the computer, I turn on the computer and try to start doing my project, because up until that point, I had not even started the project. I didn't even start, I didn't do nothing. So 11-year-old me hops on the computer and tries to start doing this project at night, but the day before it's due. So as I said before, the project was to do a report on an animal for science class, right? Some of the things that, my teacher wanted us to talk about were the animals, habitat and where they live, the food that they eat and that type of stuff, right? So what animal do I decide to do? I decide to do dogs, more specifically Dalmatians, but dogs. So this is the second and third NeuroSpicy thing that I did in this story. The second one is that I took this project too literally, meaning that when my teacher said, do a report on an animal for science class, I heard animal and was like, oh, dogs are animals, so I should do a dog. But really, what he meant, he didn't say everything that he meant, which is his fault, but he really did mean to do a wild animal, because it's science class. We're talking about animal habitats, the things animals eat. So doing a dog, which is a pet, a domesticated animal, doesn't really make sense for this project. But me being autistic. I took it too literally, and I heard animal and thought of my favorite animal, my special interest animal, which is the third neurospicy thing that I did in this story, was choose my special interest for a project. And I decided to do dogs. So I'm sitting at the computer trying to type up this project about dogs the night before it's due. From what I remember, I think my mom saw me at the computer and is asking me, what am I doing on the computer at night before bed? Which, fair question, 100% valid question, because, I'm 11. I'm supposed to be going to bed soon, and I'm on the computer typing up stuff. I would be concerned too. So, yeah. So that's when I explained that I have a project due tomorrow. And that's what I'm trying to do. So, of course, I get a talking to about, why are you starting this project now when it's due tomorrow? You should have started this ages ago. Which, again, fair. But, my mom didn't leave it there. She helped. She decided to help me because, she doesn't want her kid to be getting in trouble for not doing projects. So she decided to help me and got my sister to help me too to finish up to do this project, right? So since I went to a French immersion school, so everything was in French, and so my project had to be in French. So my mom got my sister to help to type up everything in French because I was taking too long trying to translate information that I knew in English to French. So she got my sister to help type up stuff and everything. So the next part is kind of funny because basically how this project got done is that I just basically info dumped a bunch of information about dogs to my sister, who then translated it into French and typed it up for me. It's really, I find this part really funny because the only reason I was able to get this project done the night before it was due is because dogs were my special interest, and because when I was younger, I had read a lot of books about dogs, and I just had all of this information in my head. So when it was time to do this project, I had all this information already, so I just info dumped it all, and that is how I got my project done. I did not look up anything about dogs except for where Dalmatians are originally from, which I learned they're from Croatia. But yeah, that's the only thing that I looked up. Everything else I just had in my head because of dogs being my special interest. Yeah, we got the project done in probably a few hours, I would say. All because dogs are my special interest. Because I had an animal as my special interest. And so I was able to do this project really quickly, with help, of course. If I didn't have an animal as a special interest, I don't know what I would have done for that project. And we would have spent so much time looking up information to put this project together. It's just, having a special interest really helped out in this situation. Hence the title of the story. Yeah. So we were able to finish up that project in a matter of hours, and I got it all together and handed it in the next day. Well, I didn't really hand it in. I had to present it the next day. So this is another really funny thing that happened. So I remember getting to school, having my project ready, and then seeing all the other kids and their animals that they chose. They chose things like tigers, dolphins, snakes, I think, or stuff like that, wild animals. And I realized, oh, I did a dog. I'm nobody else really did a pet animal. And I realized, that was when I realized, I was oh, maybe I should have picked a different animal. But if I picked a different animal, then I wouldn't have been able to do it as quickly. So, I don't know. I presented my project, and I remember my teacher, after I presented it, he asked me oh, where did you get this information from? My response was that, oh, I really liked dogs when I was little, and I used to read a lot of books about dogs, so I just remembered all of this information. That was my response. And he was baffled. I don't even think he had a response to that. He was just like, okay. Like, he was very confused and baffled. Like, what? She just remembered this information? Like, what? Thinking about it now, it's kind of funny. That's basically the story of how my special interest really came in handy, because I was able to use all the information that I knew from reading about my special interest of dogs a lot from a little, to get a project done on time, even though it was the night before it was due. And in case you're wondering, I ended up getting a B on the project, which is fair. Which, it's not a bad grade. It's a pretty good grade, and it is very fair because A, I did do it the night before it was due. If I had done it earlier, I probably could have gotten a better grade. But also, I did it on dogs, which didn't really fit the requirements of what we were supposed to do. But again, I still feel like my teacher could have explained that a little bit better, could have been a little bit more specific, instead of just assuming that we all would read between the lines of what he was saying. So that's on him. It's on me, but it's also on him. It's more on him than it is on me. That's what I'm trying to say. So yeah, it's kind of a short story. It's not as long as my other stories, but it is still a NeuroSpicy story, and there is a lot of NeuroSpicy things going on in that story. So let's review. After every story, I like to just go back over the NeuroSpicy things that were done in this story, just to highlight like different neurodivergent traits so that people can kind of understand these traits just a little bit better, or understand what it looks like a little bit better. So the first trait that I talked about is a like ADHD trait, is just being forgetful, often forgetful. Now, in this story, I forgot about this important project that I had to do. And of course, you know, a lot of people, everybody forgets things time to time, but for people with ADHD, it's like a frequent thing that happens more than just like a few times. So like, whereas a neurotypical person might forget about a project like once or twice in their life, for someone with ADHD, this happens like every year. Like, it happens like a lot more frequently than that. And it happens with a lot of things. So it's not just schoolwork, but it might be appointments and, I don't know, other things. So this is just one story of me forgetting about a project, but in my life, I have forgotten about many projects and then ended up doing them late, or just forgetting about them altogether. So honestly, I will say that I did forget about projects more when I was younger versus when I got older, because I learned to like write stuff down. So yeah, but the forgetting is still something that happens. So it might not be for projects, but it's definitely for other things. And so the next trait that I kind of talked about also is procrastination. And that, for me anyways, it falls into more of an autism, like a PDA autism trait more specifically. So if you don't know what PDA is, that stands for pathological demand avoidance. And so if you didn't see that video, I made there's a 2-part videos of it. So if you want to check it out, I will have it linked up here somewhere. And yeah, you can check it out if you want. But basically, how is procrastination a trait of PDA autism? Basically, school assignments are a demand, and so me having PDA, I automatically want to avoid said demands, and so procrastination is one way that I try to avoid things. I can say without a shadow of a doubt that I have procrastinated on every single school assignment that I've ever had. I know for a fact that I've procrastinated on every single one, and so this is just me procrastinating on this project, this animal project that I had to do, is just normal ritual behavior, honestly. So yeah, but it's also a trait of PDA autism. So the next trait that I talked about was taking things literally, or literal thinking. And so this is a trait of autism as well. And so basically, if you don't know what literal thinking is, it's thinking that is based on what you can see, hear, feel, and experience in the here and now. So reasoning that focuses on like physical objects or immediate experiences or the exact interpretation of words. So it's just, taking things like literally. I don't know how else to say it. For me, in the example of the story, I do a project on an animal literally. Like dogs are an animal. I took it too literally, and I didn't really think or read between the lines, I guess, of what my teacher was saying. And yeah, I chose a dog, a domesticated animal, when I should have chosen more of a wild animal that lives in the wild, not an animal that lives in your home, because it just makes more sense for the project as a whole. So yeah, that's an example of taking things literally in day-to-day life. So the next trait that I talked about is special interests. So this is another autism trait. If you don't know what a special interest is, it's just like a really focused interest that autistic people tend to have. Yeah, it's just something that we're really, really, really interested in, and learning about it or engaging with it just brings us a lot of joy and can help us regulate our emotions. And yeah, it's like a big part of our life. So one of mine is dogs, as is the whole point of the story, because I like to read a lot about dogs and learn a lot about dogs. I had all this information stored up in my mind about dogs, which helped me do my project. But yeah. And then the last trait that I talked about is info dumping, which I forgot to say in the story is the 5th NeuroSpicy thing that I did in the story. But yeah, so info dumping is another autistic trait, and that's connected to special interest, which is basically just, it is what it sounds like. It's just sharing a lot of information about a specific topic all at once to somebody. It's usually done with special interests, and it's sometimes seen as like a neurodivergent or an autistic love language. So like autistic people tend to do it with people that they really care about. Like they want you to, we want you to learn about the things that interest us because we like it, so we want you to like it, and we like you, so yay, right? Yeah. In the story, I basically info dumped a bunch about dogs to my mom and my sister while they helped me with my project, which was great for me. So like, yeah, even though it was like a stressful event in general, I remember that memory of me just dumping a bunch of information about dogs to my mom and my sister as like a really positive memory because it was, at the end of the day, it was pretty fun. I just got to talk about something that I really liked for a bunch, and nobody would tell me that, they didn't really want to hear the information or that I was talking too much or anything like that. So those are the traits, the neurodivergent traits that I talked about in my story, and that is it for my story time today. I hope that you enjoyed this story and you maybe learned something new about neurodivergent people or you just related to the story. I don't know, but I don't know. I like remembering the story because it kind of makes me laugh, and I just think that it's really funny that I did this project in a couple of hours all because dogs is my special interest. So yeah. But yeah, so that's it for today's video. If you like this video, if you related some way, then please hit the like button so that it can spread to more people. If you have anything that you would like to comment, or if you have anything you want to say, then go ahead and comment it down below. It's always nice seeing your comments. And finally, if you just enjoy watching my videos, then please subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you know when I post my next video. And as always, stay Rachelistic, or whatever your name is, istic. And I will see you in the next video. Yeah, goodbye.